got you doing, what made this happen? What made this book?
Well, it was really simple. You know, in the journalism industry, we tend to be a little bit slow on following up on technology. I didn't really know what comments were at the time. And one day I just said, oh, for entertainment purposes, I'll just read, the comments at the end of this story. And when I did, I was completely shocked because I was like, well, it seemed like every time the subject of the story identified the person being written about as either directly or indirectly African American, I found that the comments were so racist. And I couldn't understand why this was okay to do now, where you wouldn't walk up to someone and talk to someone like that, but it was okay for you to post it online. So it upset me. And
I haven't done justice to the fact that we haven't talked about the fact that you have a journalism career. So it is not. I talked about your work at CUNY, but never mentioned the fact that you have been a journalist and
yes.
are a journalist.
Yes.
So I apologize for that. Let's continue the conversation.
That's okay. That's okay. So I started reading more of these stories, more of these comments, and I started complaining to newspapers, why is this on here? Why is this okay? And sometimes they take it off. But I feel like, 100 other people or more probably read this already, even though you took it off, and maybe they shared it or whatever. So that means that it's still out there.
Well, let me ask a question. Those comments stay there, and there are some gatekeepers at different publications.
Oh, you mean comment moderators?
Comment moderators, yes.
In the early days,
yes.
Based on what I read, it seemed like they weren't, but there probably were. They probably had software filters to catch certain words, but people would spell the N-word differently with letters and numbers, and it would pass through the filters. And I think a lot of what happened in terms of like the worst stuff that appeared online happened like in the overnight hours. Now, as you may know already, the newspaper industry had changed, and there have been some issues over the years. It's been in decline because of the competition with the internet, the World Wide Web at that time. And so the idea was to have comments to push people to go to the websites to read the content from the news organizations. And so they allow comments.
Now, you're saying, though, that what you noticed was if the subject of the story was African American,
yes.
There were going to be comments, ugly comments, having nothing necessarily to do with the story or the content of the story, just about
right.
slurs on their African Americanness.
That's right.
And
every stereotype you can imagine. It was off topic. It had nothing to do with what happened. And even if the topic of the story had committed a crime or whatever, people of other races do the same thing. So we'd be singled out, put it that way.
And the fact that it was being done, well, the fact that there is racism in this country is a fact. The fact that it was being done in this very sort of, I don't want to say passive way because the language is not passive, but in the protection of their, sitting in their house, while they would never confront you and say, blah, 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 they felt very comfortable typing out ugly words and putting it out there. And are you suggesting that there is when you say talking about this monopoly, are you suggesting that this is a coordinated effort in any way, shape, or form?
No, not coordinated. The people who write these comments are able to hide behind false screen names. That was the biggest backlash that a lot of news organizations received behind this, because it seemed like they were sanctioning it when in fact the terms of agreement that you may check off a box when you register to log into these websites, but they basically say that your content is your own and that the publication is not responsible for what you write. So, but that's not what was happening when people would say, oh, you're allowing so many people to be anonymous, and there's no retribution behind it because they can say whatever they want. You allow it to be posted, and everybody can read this.
This broke all that rules, and it just opened up the floodgates of anonymous bigotry.
That's right. That's right.
Have they gotten smarter about this?
I would say that from the time I started collecting comments, which was in 2008 to about 2015, I would say definitely, because the outpouring of anger behind the not only racism but the sexism, xenophobia, and homophobia, all these things were rampant in online comments. My book is just a small part of what is a much bigger problem. But at least news organizations did take the time out to start addressing the problem. But they found that it was difficult to do, trying to hire people to sit there and moderate comments. And what was happening is a lot of editors ended up doing double duty trying to moderate these comments in addition to their other jobs, which was equally hard to do.
So what is it that? So how have these floodgates been controlled, or are we saying that there has been some improvement in the way it since 2008 to 2017? Has the world gotten more civil in the online comment section?
No, Chris.
No, okay.
No.
No, somehow I didn't think so. Go ahead, though. I mean, I'm
Okay.
So
it has gotten better in terms of, they will delete comments, they will remove comments. The New York Times is probably one of the better ones. They're putting a lot of money and effort behind having their comments moderated. Some organizations are going to comment moderation organizations, like there's one called e-moderation, where you can hire them to moderate your website or whatever needs to be moderated.
Well, I mean, I guess my question is, we've always known that there are ugly folks out there with ugly ideas. I would suggest, and you can tell me if I'm right, that the election of the first African American president of the United States triggered a great deal of anger.
Yes.
And this idea that it's not about the color of Obama's skin. Of course it was about the color of Obama's skin. And you've been in the comment section knowing this, and you're here to report that, yes, it was racism.
Yes, that's what chapter 2 is about.
Okay.
In fact, that's how the whole premise of the book started, just because of what I saw about President Obama. And I was like, wow, this man has done everything he's supposed to do. He made it to the top. I mean, he's spectacular, and yet they're still calling him a boy. They're still calling him a coon and all these things. And I'm like, okay, what decade are we in?
So you were surprised?
I'll say surprised, and I know to some people that might sound naive. Of course, I'm familiar with racism. When I was born in 1966, I didn't deal so much with the civil rights movement. However, experiencing racism online in this way was devastating to me, and I definitely took offense to it.
And what was the impact? And what has been the impact on the African American community to see that in the 21st century?
Disappointment, anger. For me, it was depression to some degree. I basically immersed myself in online comments for several years, and I tell you, I don't think I'll ever be right again.
At what point did you want to stop?
I did stop in 2013. I almost didn't continue because I had been so depressed. And, this type of thing is going to affect people differently. This is how it affected me. Because as a journalist, my whole passion for writing came in writing more positive stories about African Americans. AnitaSamuels.com. You can go on Amazon.com. You can go on BNN.com, as in Barnes & Noble. And there are many independent booksellers like Greenlight that also sell books.
It is, like I say, it is always great when we get to do a show about members and the interesting lives that they live and the work that they're doing. Rants and Retorts is the book, How Bigots Got a Monopoly on Commenting About News Online. The author is Anita M. Samuels, and we're proud that she is a local 375 member. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And you will be back.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back.